President Biden is speaking in Virginia today on combating high health care costs.
The White House says he will be critical of previous attempts by some Republicans to cut or eliminate health insurance. CBS News White House reporter Willie James Inman joins us now. Good to have you with us. So tell us, what is the president expected to propose during his speech when it comes to strengthening the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid?
Hey there, Lana and Lilia. That's right. The president is set to address a room full of people here in Virginia Beach today. And he's going to build off of that speech that he gave, the State of the Union speech, just weeks ago. White House officials say that he is going to not only criticize Republicans, but he's going to talk about ways in which his administration is seeking to further protect Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare, through his budget proposal that's set to come out in about a week's time. Now, the president, in being here in Virginia, a purple state, a lot of politicians will remind you, it's a very important state, not only to this president, but to the Democratic Party as well, when they're looking at the 2024 race, but looking at congressional races as well. But one of the ways the president is seeking to tout the key differences between his proposals, his budget proposal, and that of Republicans is by getting out on the road. White House officials wouldn't explicitly say why he chose Virginia Beach to speak today, but White House officials did say, however, that the president is eager to talk about those key differences in those previous attempts, not only to repeal or replace, as Republicans have continuously said about Obamacare, but cuts that they have made, threats that they have made to both Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security as well. And those cuts, of course, have been walked back by a Republican senator from Florida, Rick Scott, who has since changed that plan that he put forward after fierce criticism from Democrats, including President Biden.
Now, Willie James, let's talk about that budget that the administration is set to release on March 9th. How do you expect that the president will address tensions over spending with Republicans?
Yeah, White House officials say essentially that the president will fiercely criticize Republicans today for their previous attempts. Now, there hasn't been a discussion about the president's budget because the president's budget hasn't come out yet. March 9th, as you mentioned, Lilia, is that date where we expect to get the papers. That will be extremely a lot of reading for us political folks in D.C. But one of the things that White House officials say is they're trying to draw that contrast. They say that the American people deserve to know what Republicans would do with their budget proposal, but also what President Biden wants to do with his budget proposal as well. And one of those key things that Republicans say is we need to make cuts to be able to cut the deficit. President Biden, he has continuously said that he is not cutting Social Security, not cutting Medicare, not cutting Medicaid, and the Affordable Care Act as well. He's going to look on building on top of that. That's what a White House official told reporters yesterday on the background briefing call, that the president is not up for cutting these key programs. And I think one of the things we continuously see is not only does he go out and call and label these Republicans extreme MAGA Republicans, he explicitly tries to draw that difference. It's kind of like he's almost in campaign mode, although he hasn't officially announced that campaign quite yet. I expect him to be fiercely critical of Republicans here today. And I'll also point out one last thing, that Governor Youngkin of Virginia criticized the president for visiting Virginia here today. He said instead of talking about these key entitlement programs that he should be visiting East Palestine in Ohio with that train derailment, still the community reeling from the aftermath of that toxic waste there. So that's been some of the criticism that we're seeing on the ground here in Virginia.
A lot of Republicans voicing that very complaint. Willie James Inman, it's so good to have you.
Yes, thank you.